here, it's kind of small, you can see that, oh, this is a success, and we have successfully gotten all the tasks. So you can run GET requests from your browser just by going to the URL of your route. But something else that's really useful is an application called Postman. So Postman is just an application that lets you send requests, but it's nice that you can send requests of all kinds. You can do your posts and your puts and deletes, and you can also specify things like your headers and your body, which will be really useful when we're testing our post requests later. So I have this request here, which is, let's change that, the exact same one as the one I just put into my browser. That might be a little small. Let me just make that bigger. Yeah. And we can see here that it's a GET request. If I send it, we receive a body down here, or sorry, a response, and it's the exact same thing as we saw in the browser. And you can see here that the status says 200 OK, which is what we wanted. Cool. So we have gotten our tasks, but what if we want to create a new task? That is also easily done. Also, something fun you can do here is that you can have multiple routes call the same function. So it doesn't just have to be this /1. You can do something like app.route and then tasks here. And so if you hit 5,000 / just a slash, or if you hit 5,000 / tasks / it will get all your tasks. So next thing we want to do is create a task. We can do that. Let's specify a route. So we're actually going to be using the same route path. The thing is, you can have multiple functions be called from the same route if the method is different. So it'll still be something like tasks here. But we can specify that the methods that this will run with is the post method. So let's do define create task. So when you create a task, you have to know that the user will be inputting some value and you will have to parse it. Where is the user going to be putting that value? It's going to be in the request body. So if we have a request for this, looks like this, you can see here that under like parameters and headers, I have a section for body, and they will be sending over a JSON with the description of the task they want to create. Note that we only need to send a description because from the way we created this program, the ID should just be auto-incrementing. Like the user shouldn't have to know what ID their task is going to be. That's handled by us. And by default, when you create a task, it should just be not done, right? Like you're not going to create a task that's already done. Why would you create it? So we don't really only have to worry about the description. So if this is the case, we're going to want to get our description from the post body. So let's do that. Post body. So we're going to use a function called json.loads. You could probably guess it does the opposite thing of json.dumps. Instead, it will take in a JSON and convert it into a Python dictionary, so it's easier for us to manipulate. So we're going to want the request data. So Flask will handle this for us in terms of like the request we're getting. Whenever the endpoint is hit, we will also have access to this object, the request, and inside of it is the data, and that's just like the body. So our post body will look something like this now. Just as an example, it'll look like description, like that. And it's a Python dictionary. So now that we have the description, we can just get the string value from the post body, the description, and then we will create a new task to add to our tasks dictionary. So we can do task equals. All right, so we have to decide what ID this is going to be. Because we're just manually doing it, adding to a dictionary, it might be useful to have a global variable for now that just keeps track of our ID counter. So we can have like a task ID counter. And the one that hasn't been used yet is 2. We already have ID 0 and ID 1. So we can just set the ID to task ID counter. And since this is Python, we're going to have to define task ID counter as a global variable here. We want the global one, not just some like random local one. We want the description to be our description we just parsed out. And then we want done to be false. Now we can add it to our tasks dictionary. So we want the value, or rather the key, to be just the ID that we're keeping track of. And then this is going to equal task. And then, of course, since we use the ID, we want to increment the ID counter to make sure that the same ID isn't used again. Cool. So we've updated the task dictionary, but we want to send something back to the client to make sure that they know that the task was successfully created. So we can just, it's customary that when you create something new, you also send it back to the client just so they know, like, hey, everything was fine. So we can just return json.dumps, and then our object is going to be success. This was true. And our data is the task we just created. And then we can put our status code as 201, which means it's like 2000 or 200, but for like creating things specifically. Cool. So now that we have this, we should be able to go ahead and start the server again. Awesome. And then now let's look at the tasks that we have so far. Nothing should have changed. It's just these two. But now if we create a task, we see here that we have a new task with take a nap. And if we get all the tasks again, here it is. Pretty nice. I'll just pause right here. Does anyone have any questions so far? Yep. Excuse me, sorry? Oh yeah, because in Python, even if you define a global variable like just outside of the function, if you try to use that without explicitly saying like, hey, this is going to be a global one, then it's going to create a new variable that's like totally separate from the one you defined higher up, which is kind of annoying, but it is a thing.
Does that answer your question? Or? Cool.
Cool. All right.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Wait, so how did you create a task, and then you loaded it and the task was there?
You mean in Postman or in the code?
Like in the post.
Oh yeah, so I can do this again. So in Postman, it's very similar to, so actually I'll just show you how we create this request. We have a new request here with nothing in it. We can specify the method, and what we want is post, and then we want to specify the URL we want to hit. I'll just copy and paste that, and you can see here it's our IP address, the port, and then the route that we specified right here. So it's tasks, right? And then you want to make sure that you have a body, which is right here, and you can type it out yourself. We want it to be a JSON, so we can do something like description, and then, I don't know, take a shower. And then now that we have everything we need, we should be able to send it. Oh, I didn't start the server, my bad. We can send it, and since the server is actually on now, it will send a request, and it will successfully create a post. So you might be noticing, sorry, give me a sec. You might notice that the one that we created before is gone, and that's because these Python objects aren't persistent, just because we're not using a database or anything. We're just running the program. So say it's kind of like if you open up your Python like command line and you do like x equals 5 and then you exit out and then you go back in and you try to find x again. Well, it's not there because you exited out of your session. So because we're just using this object temporarily to hold everything, it's not persistent. Yep.
How did you decide on the port being like 5,000?
So 5,000 is something common. You might also seen like port 3,000 being used a lot, and it's just because that you generally don't need any like extra permissions to use it. It's kind of like you can connect to it and just test stuff on it without worrying about like important stuff being like destroyed.
So how do you make sure you're not like mingling with other people trying to?
It will be angry at you if you have something. So this was actually a problem we had last semester. For those of you who have taken Python here, I'm sure you've used like Anaconda. I think Walker uses that. And sometimes that runs on port 5,000. So when they tried to do this assignment, or maybe it was 3,000, one of those, it conflicted. So if that's the case, the ports are pretty arbitrary. Honestly, you could choose like 3001. If that doesn't work, 3002. So it's really fine. Like Flask will warn you. It'll say, hey, we can't open the server because there's something already there. Cool. So let's continue. So now that we have create tasks, what if you just want to get the information for one of your tasks? Like say you have a million things to do, you have like 10,000 p-sets, but you only really want to look at one of them. We want to be able to get the information for one specific task. So we can do that by doing this. So let's create a new route. And let's make this path something like tasks, but a specific one. So how are we going to know which task we want to get? We're going to pass that in as a URL parameter. And Flask lets you do that by putting a placeholder variable up in the path where you can specify the type and the name. So basically what this is doing is that whenever you hit this endpoint, Flask is going to see, hey, there's going to be a user-defined value right here where it says task ID. So it's going to take it, it's going to parse the number. Well, hopefully it's going to be a number. If it's not, then it will throw an error. And then what it will do is it will say, well, that number is equivalent to task ID. And when we run our function, get task, we can pass it in as a parameter in the function. So that way you can just write your function, with the parameter given in from the route itself. So if we want to get the task, we need to make sure that the task exists. We don't want to get something that's not there. So we're going to check if the task ID is in our tasks dictionary. Then we can go ahead and grab it. And then we want to return it. So we will return json.dumps, and then we know that this is a great success. And the data is task. And then we can go ahead and do a 200 code. However, we also want to know when it has failed. If we can't find the task, we don't want to just leave the client hanging, like, oh, what happened to the task? We want to give them an error message. So if it's not in the tasks, then we can just return a different response. So we will note that the success is false. And instead of sending data, because there's no data to send, we can send an error. And we'll say task not found. Yep. And again, status code will be 404, which Connor mentioned earlier, means the resource was not found. So we can try this out really quickly. So we know that there's going to be a task 0 and task 1. So if we have this request, we see here that 0 is our task ID in the URL. Tasks. Oh, oops, my bad. Thank you. Tasks. Yay, we get the task we wanted. And if we look at the 1 as well, then we get that one too. However, if you want task a bajillion, oh no, you haven't found it. But at least it's a user-defined error message versus a completely nonsensical default one where you have no idea what's going on. All right, so what if we want to update a task? This might be like you want to fix a typo in your description, or you want to add something else to it. Or maybe even more importantly, you want to make sure that, if it wasn't done before, you check mark it or whatever, and now it should become done. We can do that by updating it. And this is going to be pretty similar to what we did before. We're going to create a route, tasks. You want to specify the task ID. And then we will do a post method. So you can also do a put method. It doesn't really matter. I think post is usually more supported even for updating than put, but it's really up to you. We can do define get, or rather update task, and we'll have our task ID. So again, we want to make sure if the task actually exists. We're going to take the task, and then now we're going to want to update it with the new fields that we specified in our body. So if we mock a request, the request would look something like this. Very similar in terms of like, it's a post request, we have our task part of the route, and then we specify which task. But in our body, this time we will want to specify what's going to be our new values. We want the description now to be laundry and dry cleaning instead of just laundry, and we want to say, well, we did it. So we need to get these values, again, from the body. So we can do the same thing as we did before, where we take the post body from the JSON version. So json.loads, request.data. And now you have the post body, and all you have to do is update it in the tasks dictionary, which is just task description equals post body. Oops. Typing is hard. And then we want to do the same with task done. The done field is also going to be whatever the post body done field is. And then we want to, so this is all updated in our dictionary, but of course, again, we want to return the new updated version of the task to the client. So we'll do json.dumps success. Fantastic. And data is our task. And then we will put a 200. Okay, everything was good. And then similarly to get task, we want to let them know if the task isn't there. So we can actually just copy and paste the same thing. We want them to know that the task is not found. Cool. So let's test that out. Oh, I have a typo somewhere. Oh, yeah. Let's actually close off our placeholder indicator. Cool. So let's update our, let's make sure that we get our task. So this is task 1. We have homework. And then update task 1. Here, instead of homework, you want it to be, sorry. It should be tasks as we specified in our code. And then now we see, oh, it's now laundry and dry cleaning. Screw homework. And just to make sure, sanity check. If you look again, yes, it is laundry and dry cleaning. I love procrastinating. All right, so the last thing I'll show you is what if we want to delete a task? This is going to be, again, pretty similar to what we've been doing before. We want to specify which task we want to delete. And this time our method will be delete. So let's define this as delete task ID. And then again, sanity check, is it here? No. Then the task, we just grab that from the tasks dictionary. And then Python has this keyword that's called del, which you can imagine is delete. Pretty useful. We can just delete the thing in the dictionary. But by doing that, we still have our task, which is just the thing we deleted from the dictionary, no longer present in the dictionary, but exists in the task variable. So we can return that. So we want to do json.dumps again. Success. We have obliterated it, and our data is a task. And then all is good. And then again, we can do this line for if we have not found a task. So something to note here is that you just want to be sure that, if something goes wrong in terms of if it's in, if it's not in, what we're looking for, you want to try to cover all the bases. So that's easier for the client to figure out what's going on. That's one of the reasons why we also return the task we just deleted. Of course, you can just say, hey, we deleted it, good job. But it's also nice to include the information that you deleted so they, can maybe make sure, hey, this is the thing we actually wanted to delete. So yeah, let's just run this very quickly. And what if we want to delete the task, the homework task? Tasks, oh my gosh. So we look at our data, this is the one we wanted. Then if we get the task, oh no, task not found, but that's actually what we wanted. So that's kind of the wrap up of the demo. Demo code will be, so this lecture is recorded and will be posted to our YouTube channel. So if you ever need to, if I was moving too fast, you need to review kind of what I wrote or what I said, they will be posted shortly. Yeah. So do you want to talk about the assignment?
Yeah, I guess first question in the back.
What happens?
The global variables stay the same, so it helps us preserve uniqueness of IDs. We don't want to go back and replace it with an ID of a task that was previously deleted, so we just keep moving forward.
Yeah, since the ID is used kind of internally, we don't really care if there's a gap in continuity, because if you imagine, say we have 3 tasks, 0, 1, and 2, we delete number 1, and then we set the ID counter back to 1, then if we just increment it as normal, we already have something named 2. So now we have 2 things with ID 2, and that's a problem. Yep.
Is the raw code from the demo going to be posted somewhere?
No. Not the code of the final thing, but some starter code for the assignment will be provided, namely just your imports and then if name is main app.run at the bottom, but we want you to write all of your own code as much as possible, so yeah.
This is also kind of more my thought question, but why didn't you need to say that tasks was a global list or a global map? Sorry.
Wait, why we needed to say global?
Why didn't you need to say that tasks was global? Because the ID counter you had to say was global, but then the dictionary was also kind of outside all the other things.
Oh, that's true. I think it's a weird Python quirk in terms of how dictionaries are handled versus simple types.
That works.
Good question.
Or maybe this is just some legacy stuff from when we did this in Python 2. And Python 3 is better now, but try it for yourself. Yeah.
Yep.
So I'll hand over. Cool. So I guess some notes about the assignment for Sunday is we'll be making a Reddit-style forum with posts and comments. You'll be implementing similar routes as Alicia just showed. There is a programming assignment handout on Piazza with instructions along with the API specification that we'll be testing your code against, along with a description of the assignment. And we also have some extra credit challenges if you want to try them. There will be challenges for each assignment we do to give students who just want to do more something to do and challenge themselves on. But other than that, that's all we have for tonight. Thank you for coming out. And yeah. Oh, question in the back. Sorry? Individual assignments, yeah. But you can work with each other. Just like don't copy and paste someone else's code. But you can work together, please.
Cool.
What's up?